My name is Philip Shackelford. It's my honor to welcome you to the Lee County Library and to this wonderful event. I appreciate all of you for traveling. I know some of you came quite a distance. We're excited for today and glad you all are here. One of the great privileges I have is to lead this wonderful team here at the Lee County Library, and several of those had a special hand in preparing for today. So I'd like to say a special thanks to Bonnie Gaines, Tina Meeks, Grace Guntharp, Mackenzie Mackey, and our whole team for preparing for today. If we can give them a hand. I appreciate that. I'd also like to thank Brad and Kelvin and Jonathan from Lee County Maintenance for helping us out yesterday, as well as the friends at the Lee County Library. If you've not encountered a friend yet, Harold will speak with you after the show, and he can tell you all about what it means to be a friend of the Lee County Library, so we'd encourage you to check that out. I've made the point in the past that as an organization, we need to be invested in the community that we serve, but we also need a community that's invested in us. And the next time I'm called upon to make that case, I would like to show a picture of this audience, a testament not only to culture, but also a wonderful book, a fantastic author, and the power of libraries to bring all of those things together. So thank you. Once again, thank you all for being here. I hope we can serve you well today. And without further ado, let me turn it over to Ms. Lisa Reed, the chair of our Tupelo Reads Committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I just want to say I think that Allen has given Rick Bragg and Winston Groom a real run for their money, because this may be the biggest crowd we've ever had, and he is all that, I promise. He really is really great. So it's great to have you all here. This is our 15th Tupelo Reads, and it was established with the mission of connecting great books and great authors with readers, and to celebrate Tupelo as a center of lifelong learning. And we especially welcome Allen and his sister Beth Lakefold and friend Kathy Turner. We're just delighted. They are all delightful. We're so glad you're here, and everybody be especially nice, because we want to be Allen's favorite place on his book tour. So, looking back at the last couple of years with Tupelo Reads, I can't think of more diverse books than our last three offerings. 2 years ago, with Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, our hero was an octopus named Marcellus, who had a sweet relationship with a cleaning lady, and it was set in the Pacific Northwest. And the author, Shelby Van Pelt, was the best-selling author in America at the time. Last year, Race Against Time was an honest accounting of a dark history in our state and Alabama of terrible racial murders that had gone unpunished until dogged journalism brought justice 3 decades later. The author, Jerry Mitchell, is a Mississippian and one of America's most honored investigative journalists. This year, we have a tender book about bestowals of kindness in a small Georgia town by a mysterious stranger. The author is self-published and watched his book take off to the top of the bestseller list. So here's a word to aspiring authors. If you want to be famous, come to Tupelo Reads. A quick word about some of our other activities that we've done in conjunction with the book. I hope that, well, here's the banner right here, but I hope you've seen it on social media and in the schools. We purchased these banners and put them in every school in the Tupelo district, at the Boys and Girls Clubs, TCPS, El Centro, and here at the library. And they've really been a big hit, because the kids take a picture of themselves being the eye and kind. So we're trying to spread a little kindness around. Committee members have taken a book called Caring, which is elementary level, about kindness, and read in all the elementary schools, and then we donated them to their libraries. And we partner every year with the Tupelo High School Art Department, and they have some fabulous teachers that do something along with our theme. This year it was portraits, like Asher. Some of them were self-portraits, some of them were portraits of friends, some of them were portraits of students they didn't know very well, but it was a real connecting sort of project. And we have a juried art show, and please look at them. They're so sensitive. They're just beautiful every year. So I'm always sort of amazed at what the kids can do. So we have the winners here. But Allen went to Tupelo High School this morning, so he's had a full morning. He did a Q&A up there. And so all of this is produced by my committee, which you will see on the back of your program. And they are artists, They are readers, they are creatives, they are idea people. They say yes to everything. So I'm so appreciative of them, and I'm appreciative of our generous underwriters, the City of Tupelo, Reed's Gumtree Bookstore, Friends of the Lee County Library, and Francis and Dan Brassfield. So please help me thank them. I see this. All right, let me take you back to October 2024. So not last fall, but the fall previous. So my great friend from Birmingham is here today, was over visiting. And she said, well, have you read a, she was at our bookstore, and she said, have you read a book called Theo of Golden? And I went, no. I said, what's that about? And she said, well, it's fiction, it's a novel, it's about kindness. And I went, well, where'd you hear about it? And she said, well, my friend from Birmingham, Lee, has a friend in a bookstore in Cashiers, North Carolina. Her name is Susan, and they read it because they had a friend from Atlanta who had been in a book club and read it. So this describes the way readers came to this book. Word of mouth, person to person, reader to reader, book club to book club. And the trajectory from a self-published book to the top of the New York Times has been nothing less than meteoric. Allen Levi is a Renaissance man. His career is multifaceted. He lives on family land in Hamilton, Georgia, near Columbus. His father was a forester, and he's one of 5 children. He went to Mercer and then UGA, so I guess he's a Georgia Bulldog, right? And secured degrees in English and law. He then traveled to Scotland and got a degree in Scottish literature from the University of Edinburgh, and returned home to take care of his beloved brother and best friend, Gary, who was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. His account of this is his book, The Last Sweet Mile. He practiced law again, and then morphed to a more itinerant career as a singer-songwriter before he wrote our book. In a great article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution last week, Allen said, don't think for a minute I set myself up as a Theo character. I'm probably a lot closer to Tony. And y'all remember the curmudgeonly bookstore owner, the Verbivore. But it seems to me he really is a lot like Theo, and many of his best buddies say so too. Every Thursday is his catch-all day. He gets in his truck and travels to Harris County Elementary School, where he volunteers as a greeter and a reader. And again, according to the reporter from the AJC who went with him, the kids love him. And like Theo, Allen gets his inspiration from Wordsworth's poem, Tintern Abbey, which says, the best portion of a man's life, little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. So when we asked Allen whether he preferred a presentation or a conversation, he said conversation. And I thought, who do I know who can converse? And I looked across the kitchen, I thought, that guy, he likes to talk. So I've only known Allen for a day, but I have done a deep dive into your podcast and interviews. I've known this other guy for 50 years, but they have some things in common. They are both English majors and lawyers. They are both nice guys, and they are not ashamed to shed a tear sometimes. And they're both loquacious. They like to talk. So let's hear them. We are so thrilled to have Allen Levi in Tupelo. Please welcome him and Jack Reed Jr.
Thank you. I don't usually arrive with a bottle of liquor, but I'd like to explain this if I might. I was a traveling musician for about 15 or 20 years, actually before my brother got sick. And I disguised it well, but I suffer mightily from stage fright. And it's like a cruel joke that the Lord has played on me, that every job I've ever had requires me to be in front of people. But I thought, now that I am a novelist, I will never have to get in front of a group of people again as long as I live. And so I woke up today with the typical butterflies in my stomach. We were upstairs. Philip came to the room where we were having a bite for lunch, and he said, this is a gift that someone brought you. And if there is a cure for butterflies, I think I hold it in my right hand. I don't want to call out a name and embarrass anyone, so I will not tell you that Cindy Lucas brought this to me. Cindy, wherever you are, thanks. This is just the medicine that I need at this moment.
Well, Allen, I think Tupelo was the first chapter of the Elvis Presley fan club. Certainly he's our Tupelo's favorite son, but looking around today, I think we may have this the first meeting of the Tupelo chapter of the Allen Levi fan club. So welcome. You know, I was thinking about some questions that you haven't been asked by Katie Couric or all these other Zoom interrogators that you've had on your circuit lately. And I was thinking about Elvis, and he became famous so quickly. And that affected his life, of course, for good and bad. Of course, you were a singer-songwriter for 20 years, but as an author, very similar. I mean, you've become so famous so quickly. Just tell us a little bit about what's the last year, 2 years been like, and how, now you find yourself here in Tupelo, Mississippi with standing room only folks. And we're so fortunate that we found out that we could get you here before the rest of the world meet you. But how has it been? How's this been?
First of all, let me push back on the word famous. That is a word that makes me very uncomfortable, and I do not at all apply that to myself. Everything about this book has been an utter shock. I think some of you might know that it was written as a personal challenge. I did not write this to be published. I just wanted to see if I had the stamina and the muscle to write a piece of long fiction. There is a story that has been in my mind for 3 or 4 decades now, and I want to write it someday. But when I had the idea for Theo, I thought, well, this might be a good exercise to prepare me for that book that I really want to write. And when I finished Theo, I was done. I put it aside and wasn't going to do anything with it. But, you know, we started this process, my niece and I, who works for me now, and I told her at the start, first of all, we don't need to make any money. We don't need to sell any books. Let's just have fun. And that really was kind of the goal. But I told her if we could sell 100 or 1,000, I would be over the moon. And people have been so gracious to us. But a couple of things, Jack, that I decided early on, I would not look at social media, which I have never done anyway. I would not read any reviews, which I don't. Every now and then, if I get discouraged, as I have been lately working on a sequel to Theo, my niece will send me a review that she knows will just make my head explode with pride. And it encourages me to keep writing. But all of that just to say that my life has not changed terribly much. I'm extremely grateful, but I will use the word success for lack of a better term, I hold it very, very loosely and with a profound sense of stewardship. It makes me nervous a bit to have so much attention, at least for this short spell, directed in my direction. And I want to make the most of the platform that I have, hopefully for good, just to continue the work and the story and the themes of the book in real life. I was telling the high school students this morning that just a couple of days ago, my niece and I were talking, and I was in a bout of frustration about some things, and she said, what makes you really happy now? Which is a great question. I would pose that to you. Think about your life. What makes you happy? Virginia, Beth, Scott, what makes you happy? The answer came pretty quickly to me. I said, the thing that makes me happy is that, as I have done for the past 25 years, I get to go to the high school on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings from 7 o'clock to 8:15 to hold the back door open and greet kids at our one high school in Harris County, Georgia, 1,600 students. That makes me profoundly happy. And if you were to ask 98% of those young people what I do for a living, they would not have a clue. And so in that sense, you know, I'm just the strange old man that stands at the back door and can't find friends his own age, and I'm happy with that. And the other thing that makes me supremely happy is on Thursday mornings, I go to the Park Elementary School to read this year to Mrs. Dolman's second grade class. and I sit on the floor with these little kids, and it is just a highlight of every week. And so to answer your question, how has the attention that has been drawn my way because of Theo changed life? It has just made me very thankful and at times very nervous. But gratitude is the banner over everything that I have experienced in the last year or so. And today is just another reason to, when I say my prayers tonight, just say, Lord, thank you, sir. This is so undeserved, but thank you. So,
well, that's beautiful. I think one of the things you talked about before, and we've talked about even by your visit here, is your stewardship of the message of the book. And I know you and I, and a lot of people in the audience probably do share an admiration for David Brooks, the columnist. And he wrote, one either elevates the people we touch or degrades them. Ultimately, was this the ultimate purpose of the book?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, honestly, the purpose of the book was to see if I could write a book. And then I had to figure out what story will I write, and the moment of inspiration in the coffee shop is what catapulted the book itself. And then as I got into it, because I would like to be a kinder person, and I would like to be more generous, and I would like to grow old well. And as I was creating and formulating this character, all of that, really, it challenged me. But I knew at the same time, this is something that probably all of us could benefit from, regardless of who the author is. I would share with you here in the presence of so many books that I am a really poor reader. I read slowly. My retention is almost non-existent. I usually compound the problem by reading multiple books at a time. But I am an avid reader. I am a delighted reader. And I think most authors would probably like to know that their books bring delight to their readers. I am all of that. But when I read, it is not just to fill my head with information. I want to be changed by what I read. And the books that really resonate with me are the ones that challenge me to look at my life, look at my community, look at the way I'm using time, talent, and treasure that's entrusted to me. And it stirs me to change. And it may sound a little arrogant to say it, but as I got into Theo and was working on it more and more, my hope was that somebody will read this book and they might be changed just a little bit. Not that y'all need it probably as badly as I do, but we can all stand to be improved a bit. And when I wrote the character of Theo, I was not trying to write a character that was inaccessible to readers. There were multiple times during the writing process I would ask myself, is the story credible? And is the character credible? And every time I asked the question, the answer was yes. There really could be a person like this in Tupelo, Mississippi, or Hamilton, Georgia. And yes, all of the things that he is doing in this narrative are things that we could do, maybe on a smaller scale, in some different kind of way, but we can all be generous. So the writing process was it was a joy and it was a challenge to me, but I've really been gratified that at least from the few pieces of mail that have come my way, people have tended to connect with the story, I think, just in the manner that I had hoped they might. And I take no credit for that. Words have power. There's the old sacred text that says the power of life and death is in the tongue. I would also say in the pen. And I just hope that the power of life has come through the message of Theo of Golden.
Well, I think undoubtedly in our world of acrimony and division and meanness, I think people are looking for our better angels to show up.
Yeah.
And I think in this book, the man, Theo, the author, you, and the moment have met. I think absolutely. Yeah. That's one reason this book is just called Fire. People are hungry for a good book, for kindness and that thing. So thank you for that. I really believe that. One of the, yeah, absolutely. Carol Pitts, this is for you, although I was going to ask it anyway, but there are a lot of people in Tupelo and there are people from Meridian, Jackson, Birmingham, Memphis. This is, by the way, feel good. This is the farthest west as an author Allen has been. So we're the Wild West of, he traveled all over the country as a singer-songwriter, but I think that's, and in fact, you all, each of you who have a seat will appreciate this. We intentionally did not have this appearance put on Allen's website because people would have been camped out here, and many of us here would not have had a seat. In fact, I think at one of the libraries he went to earlier, they had some pretty disappointed people who weren't allowed in. So just to how fast and how much people want to hear you and meet you.
They really would have wanted to come see Jack. You know that.
Yeah. No comment. No comment. But anyway, Carol wanted me to ask this, and I wanted to too. Somebody said once, some rogue that hopefully didn't know us too well, we said Tupelo had more churches than we have Christians.
Yeah.
But there's certainly there's certainly the music of religion is a thread through the book, and you've talked about that a little bit, that you didn't intentionally want this to be labeled as a Christian publisher,
right.
But certainly the message crescendos even more toward the end. So talk a little bit about your own understanding of how you wanted the religious part of the book to be once the finished product came.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. So I grew up in the church, like so many of us Southerners do. I went because I had to go. And at my earliest opportunity, I quit going when I was in college. But at 22, I surrendered my life to Christ. It was kind of a long and winding road that got me there. And again, I say this with no credit to myself or braggadocio. I've kind of stayed on that path pretty devotedly ever since then. But even as a singer-songwriter, when I started, I wrote a mission statement for myself. That was kind of in vogue at the time in the business world. Have a mission statement. I left my law practice feeling somewhat guilty because law practice was hard. And I knew that writing songs and playing music for people was pretty easy. It was a softball. And there were times that I wondered, should I have left law practice? It was such a platform for good conversations and just to be light in a dark place. But I was satisfied, yes, I'm supposed to be doing songs at least for a while. My mission statement, if I could abbreviate it just to a few words, was I want to use songs and story to provoke Godward thought. What that meant was that if the state power company or if some big medical practice or some business organization wanted to hire me, they did not have to worry that I was going to come and do a bait and switch and start preaching to their audience. And it was not unusual for especially corporate groups to say, look, we know that you're a Christian, but please don't make any reference to that in your performance. And I would say I'm fine with that. I can still provoke Godward thought. A flower can provoke Godward thought. A nice meal can provoke Godward thought. A smile, a kiss on the cheek. That's all possible in the kingdom that I'm so grateful to be a part of. But when I started doing the novel work, again, with no expectation I would publish this book, that was still in my mind. But I wanted to write for everybody, regardless of their faith persuasion, regardless of where they stand on any plane of spirituality. And a book about kindness, I think, is a pretty universal sort of thing. I would offer to you, though, this. People usually say this is a book about kindness, and it is. If someone asked me what it's about, if they're looking for a theme, that would probably be the theme that I would say. That's not the only thing. May not be the deepest theme, but that is certainly a theme of the book. But if someone wanted to read the book in a different way, they might discover that not only is it a book about kindness, but it is a book about the reason for kindness. Okay, we all know the bumper sticker that says we should practice random acts of kindness. Theo did not subscribe to that thought. Everything that Theo did, in fact, in the eulogy part of the book, it says that his playfulness was deadly serious. And his references, his repeated references to heaven, were his way of articulating, at least for me, that the reason we do kindness is because he want to connect the person, the neighbor, the broken soul next to us with the God who made them and loves them. And so you can kind of read the book on two levels. But I have been extremely grateful that I've gotten letters from people of numerous persuasions many who are avowedly detached and really not on very good terms with the church or anything Christian, who have said thank you for the book. And I always write them back and say thank you, and I will pray for you, that you will find whatever it is that fills your heart most fully. And to me, that's one name, it's one act, it's one place. But I'm unashamed of my faith. I'm not afraid to talk about it, but I remember before I became a follower of Christ myself that it used to put me off really badly when people tried to beat me up with their faith. And I think I still bear some old scars from that, so I try to be sensitive to that possibility in others' life. Forgive me if I said too much just then, but it's an honest answer. And I've told my friends, my team, it is such a tight rope, especially now, because we like our silos. And I realized that for some, faith, the life of faith is a silo. It's a place where, certain people hang out and nobody else can get in. I don't live there, but I fear that sometimes anything I say might be taken out of context. And I'll probably drive home tonight and think, gosh, I said that so poorly, but I hope it came through.
If you were offended by that, just please leave. Wait, I want to see you. Just stand up. You ran for a judge, one of your Renaissance man careers, and to that point, when I ran for mayor, the League of Women Voters had a debate. In fact, it was at the library up there. And one of the questions was, well, Jack, your Methodist, you go to the Methodist Church. How is that going to affect your service as mayor if you're elected? And I said, well, I'm not running for minister of Tupelo.
Right.
And I said, and I certainly don't believe in a theocracy. But I said, inescapably, I think the values that I've absorbed for 50 years of being a United Methodist will hopefully guide my values in the decisions I make. And I think that's perhaps similar to what you're talking about through the book. It's part of the book.
I pray that, yeah.
Well, characters, of course, there are a lot of great characters in the book, I think, but I know probably the most votes come from one certain one. And Merle Haggard, a fellow singer-songwriter, wrote a book about homelessness once. It was called Under the Bridge. I don't know if you know that. It's a pretty deep, sweet book called Under the Bridge, about living under the bridge. But tell us about Ellen and her character and maybe her future.
Yeah. Let me start with this. When I started writing the book, I had bought 4 portraits from the coffee shop. And that's kind of what became the anchor for the story. And so I took them home and I just leaned them against the wall and would look at them, try to figure out if there was a story in the face. Ellen was one of them. And I did not know for a fact that she was homeless. But it just looked like this is a woman who's had a really hard life. And I started writing a scene of me giving a portrait to her. And then I did the same for the others. And that's when the storyline started taking shape, and I realized there really might be an interesting narrative that could be tied together with all of these bestowals. But all of the characters were created from my imagination. There was no template or any individual that I had in mind as I wrote them. There are homeless people in Columbus, Georgia, as there are in Tupelo and as there are in every other city in our country. And a lot of that part of our community kind of hang out around the coffee shop. And so you see them a lot there. I started writing the scene because I wanted, with every encounter that Theo had, to create the idea that this man's love was so expansive that he could go to the farthest recesses from his own experience, right? So you've got this man who had great achievement, great wealth, great fame, and for him to engage with a woman who rides a bicycle that she has named and lives an unsheltered life, those are pretty polar extremes. Every friendship he had in Golden, most of them anyway, maybe not Mr. Ponder, but most of the others were unlikely friendships. And so Ellen was maybe, Jack, the most obvious of that. I've never been homeless. I felt then writing Theo, and I feel now writing the sequel about Ellen a bit pretentious, presenting the idea that maybe I know what that's like. I don't. at all. But as I started creating her character, the idea of erudition, this person who is very well read and obviously has some intellect, deep intellect, and eccentricity in the same package, it just came across to me as a really interesting character to develop. And as I'm working on her more, she's more interesting than I thought she was. But at the end of the day, again, like all of these encounters, I was trying to write scenes that would challenge me to ask myself, who is it that I maybe not meaning to, but who do I exclude from my circle or from my compassion or my willingness to cross the divide with people different than me? And again, the book from start to finish has been a challenge to me as the writer and now as the reader myself, trying to put some of what Theo taught us into practice.
Well, I know we look forward to your returning to Tupelo for your second book. No pressure, no pressure. Like some of the other people in the audience, I had the good fortune to have a teacher, Ms. Frances Patterson, maybe the best public school teacher I ever had. And she was my third grade teacher.
Is that Mrs. Patterson?
If it is, I'd like to speak to my dad when we finish with Frances. And Mama too, if she has time to talk to me. But one thing I remember about her was the first day of class. She said, I've looked at my list of students this year, and this is the smartest group of students I have ever had. We're going to go so fast this year. This is going to be the best year you and I have ever had together. And she raised the bar that first day, and we all just wanted to jump over it, because she said we were smart and we wanted to be. In a way, in a very similar way, I think your Theo's bestowals on the people that he met he was bestowing that kind of greatness opportunity for them. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you kind of made the point. But maybe we could apply it to our lives and the people in our circles. Most of us probably believe a lot of things about ourselves that are not altogether true. I am a closet perfectionist. I want to do everything just right because I want everybody to like me, and if everybody doesn't like me, then my life is a failure. That is a lie. But it is one that cripples me in a lot of ways, just to be totally honest with you. For people who have had maybe, very public or dark failures in their life, I think the lie is that dark moment is the only thing that defines who we are. Theo was able, with every encounter, to behold the imago Dei, the image of God in the person sitting in front of him. And rather than speak to the dark failure, he always tried to tilt things to the light. I can learn from that myself. But I think that was his superpower, is that he was willing to listen to people without judgment or condition. He was able to hear their story. He obviously, I think, listened more than he spoke. And he loved whoever was sitting right in front of him. Again, that is not unlike, to me, it's not unlike Jesus. And in that sense, maybe he was a Christ figure of sorts in the story.
Absolutely. I had the opportunity through the junior auxiliary to speak to the rising seventh grade boys coming into Tupelo Middle School last summer. And one of the things I talked to them about was the fact that all seventh grade boys and girls are nervous. Yeah. And some may look like they've got it all together. Right. But I said, everybody, you're not the only person that's nervous going into junior high school.
That's right.
And I said, it's just, if you see, and I talked about kindness. I said, there are 4 things I want you to remember. Be kind, work hard, be curious, and be kind. Yeah. And I also taught them how to tie a necktie. Those are still for sale at Reed's, by the way, if anybody needs one. But anyway, and I gave the example. I said, there's some kid at school that's sitting over there by himself at the cafeteria, and you're with your group of 4 friends, it means nothing to you to go ask them if he'd like to join you all. It means everything to him.
Right.
And just being able to see that opportunity, be available to people like that. And I think it absolutely, we all have that opportunity every day.
Yeah.
One of your favorite authors, Wendell Berry, talked about think little.
Yeah.
And one of my things I try to remember is the smallest act of kindness is better than the grandest intention.
Right.
Do
Talk a little bit
y'all know
about
that
Wendell.
essay? Do you know the essay by Wendell Berry, Think Little?
Talk a little about that.
Wendell Berry is my favorite author. I would say Wendell Berry, C.S. Lewis, and Holy Scripture. Not in that order. But I really love Wendell Berry. He is a Kentucky farmer / writer, mostly writer. He won a Medal for the Humanities from President Obama in 2011. And he makes the point in the essay that it is our mindset as Americans when there is a big problem to come up with a big solution, a big answer. And he says that typically leads to the persistence of the problem and the enlargement of some bureaucracy that tries to fix it but never can. He says maybe the better strategy is for us to think little. And instead of thinking, let me save the planet, which is a pretty awesome goal, he says, let's just all save our quarter-acre lots. And if we do that, the cumulative effect is that we might just save the planet or part of it. And I think that in the Theo context, as much as we would like the people up in the big cities to make some laws that fix everything, the solution might just be in Tupelo, Mississippi or Hamilton, Georgia, to invite somebody to lunch and have a conversation, or to write a letter, or to do a secret kindness or a secret act of generosity. And the cumulative effect of that might actually change a community and make it the bright place that we want it to be. I think that maybe it's just my neck of the woods. I don't think so. I think a lot of us are really frustrated that we listen to the news, we see all of these problems and broken things described to us, and we feel powerless to do anything about it. I think Theo might say, turn your news off and spend that time on a bench with somebody and do little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love, and maybe we'll see some change in our communities. Having said that, I sense in Tupelo, in the less than 24 hours I have been here, that y'all are a really special community. Now, maybe that's because I've been with Jack and Lisa. But their own love for your community and the affection that they have for you as individuals and for you as their neighbors, it really feels like this is a special place. And what I would say to you is press on. There's still a lot to be done, but keep up what you're doing and be like Theo or be like Jack.
Don't do that.
Be like Lisa.
Yeah, I'll take that. I've got 2 or 3 more questions too, but I know some people in the audience, there's a microphone, Allen or Philip, do y'all have it? Again, I've got some more questions to ask, but if there's somebody who wanted to ask a question, Philip, while he's getting that, I'll ask one more while he's getting that. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll wait because that might have James, who had a hand up?
I was just curious, have you been contacted about the movie rights?
Yeah. We have. Next question. No, I'm thinking, we have, and tell me your name. James, thank you for the question, James. Early on when I was writing, well, not early on, for the entirety of the writing process, I listened to movie music. I put together a playlist of about 200 or 300 soundtracked movie parts, and it was all very lush, very melodious, a lot of strings, really nostalgic sounding music. The kind that they put in the movie to make us cry, which is why I probably cried a lot during the book. But it was interesting how many times the scene that I was writing and the music and the mood of the music converged perfectly. And I could see movie scenes in my mind. I say that acknowledging that I don't watch many movies at all. I just much prefer to read. And for most of my adult life, I've not had a television, so I'm really not very schooled in television or movies. But there were moments during the writing process that I thought, gosh, this could be a really beautiful scene. So The agency that I'm with up in New York, in fact, we met this last weekend up in Nashville, and there's been a lot of interest in the book. And I guess at some point we'll have to decide, number one, do we want to do it? And then secondly, who and what that looks like. It's a little daunting to me, to be honest with you. And I have become rather jealous for the story and the characters. And I don't want somebody to make them other than what in my mind I perceive them to be. Thank you for the question, though. I think we're gonna cast Jack as Theo.
Any other? Steve Holland? Oh, I'm sorry. Young lady back there. Sorry, Steve. You go ahead.
Talk loud. Thank you. Do what? I know what you're talking
Al,
about.
are you talking about the end or the very end?
Yeah. Alan, I've gotten lots of criticism for that, but I have no regrets about writing the story that way. It just felt like early on in the writing process when that came to me, this is how this story is going to go. Could I have written it differently? Probably. I got a letter last week, a long letter, and there was one correspondent who was very critical of that decision, and he actually wrote me an alternative scene. And I thought it was horrible. I didn't like it a bit. But Alan, to me, the question that begs of us is, why are we so bothered when something good in this world is unjustly or irrationally or unfairly taken away from us? That's what the death of Theo, I think, felt like to most of us. But I also wanted to leave the clear impression in the book that he lives or lived in a real world that looks like the world that we live in. Hence, his reference to sadness in one of the chapters. He described himself as a veteran of sadness, which all of us are, I think, if we're really honest. So yeah, apologies to a point, but it set the rest of the book up. And I tried to come up with another way to get Theo off of the stage, but still have that reveal, at the very end of the book. And I couldn't make it work. So we have what we have. I think that was Jack's very poor attempt of showing us Theo falling off.
It was a poor attempt and probably sacrilegious almost.
No.
Steve Holland had a question. I don't know if he has the microphone.
I don't need one.
This is one of Tupelo's most favorite sons here, Alan.
Thank you.
I want to encourage about one thing. There was a little known fellow who came here in 1989 and did a bunch of good books on the Reach the Accident upstairs and went to read about 3 books, signed books. His name was John Griffin.
I've heard of him.
You're going places.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we got a few more minutes. Alan, I'll just say this ahead of time. Can I mention this?
Don't.
Okay. Alan is driving back to Columbus, Georgia this afternoon with his sister and his friends. So he is going to sign copies for a while, just maybe not forever. But they are signed, but all the books in the library are already signed personally by Alan yesterday. So when we end, if you want a signed copy and buy one, the table over here is ready to go, chip. And if you want to meet Alan and get your photo taken while we have time, it'll be at this table over here.
And just so you know, there is not some deep, dark secret that we're hiding. I'm going to be flying far west, like Tupelo is getting ready to be knocked off of its high place. I'm going to go way far west for an interview with a well-known interviewer media person, and I just don't know that I've got permission to share that I'm doing that. So it's going to be a 10-hour flight, and I've got to get back in time to pack a bag and check on my dad and look at the mail and that sort of thing. I wish I could stay here for days, honestly.
I wish I could say who that person is. But I will say this. I will say this. This is a Theo answer. He was invited to be at this person's place today, and he said no. So I've committed to Tupelo, Mississippi. I think so. That's why he's got a long drive to get there. All right. I know a lot of people have asked. All right. One more, then I've got a final question.
As a songwriter, okay, good. See, as a songwriter and a novelist, how have you really consumed your teaching? And what do you write?
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. People ask me a lot, this move from law to music to novel, because it seems like they have no connection to one another, but really one builds on the other. I was sharing last night that it has dawned on me that when I was a lawyer, I used words to tell stories to persuade people. As a singer-songwriter, I used words and music to tell stories to persuade people, and now as a novelist, I'm doing the same thing. The obvious difference between songs and a novel is that you write songs in 3 hours, and you write novels in 3 years. And so you're making this enormous investment of time with no certainty of what's going to meet you at the end of the exercise. As far as tools that I use, I read a lot. I read voraciously. And like I've said previously, I remember very little about what I read. But I'm convinced that somehow, maybe some, cerebral osmosis, it just gets into us. And there is this reservoir of words and expression that serve us when we finally, come time to write the letter, write the story, write the poem, write the vow, whatever. And then I've got a really beautiful place where I work. I live on a piece of acreage. It's about a quarter of a mile from the little house that I live in. It's back in the woods. There's no internet. I do not take my phone with me. And it's just a really tranquil place to write. My hometown has 1,800 people in it. Our county, which is extremely large, has about 40,000 people in it. So to be in Tupelo is to be in a very large city compared to Hamilton. But I think too, as far as tools, one is that at some point, somehow, I just got the audacity to start. And I would attribute that to something outside myself. Writing is scary. Anything new for me has been scary to begin, right? You're going to make a mess. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to feel like you're wasting your time. But at some point, God gave me adequate audacity to take a pen and start writing. And then, along with that, some tenacity to keep me at the task until I was finished with it. And I do hope that I'll get to write a lot of books before I pass away. Thank y'all for being such good listeners.
We have one more question?
Yeah, sure.
All right. A lot of people have asked, I'm sorry, I'm going to just, because a lot of people have asked me to mention this one, I'll just take the opportunity. For many people, the most poignant chapter in the book is the chapter about the little fellow from Guatemala. Mm-hmm. And I know you've said in other interviews that one of your favorite verses is Micah 6:8, to what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Mm-hmm. That scene, I know you talked before a little bit, had some personal acquaintance with that, but let's finish up today with maybe that's the sentiments in that part of the book, that really very poignant part of the book.
Yeah, I mentioned previously that the characters in the story were all spun out of my imagination. That one was not. The actual event, the moment, was somewhat fictionalized in the book, but the story is that I was in my office one day as a judge, and two of the deputies brought a man to my office. And he had been picked up on a minor traffic charge. I don't even remember what it was. But he was a very diminutive Guatemalan man. He was shackled, he was handcuffed, and he was terrified. I mean, you could look at him and tell he was terrified. I'm not making any statement on the issue of illegal immigration, other than to say there is never a reason to be unkind. There are times we have to be stern, but never unkind. And so I asked my deputies, I may even have cursed a bit, I don't know, but take those things off of him. And I had a little table in my office. It used to be my brother's desk where he used to write letters. And it's not very wide, so I had the gentleman sit right in front of me. I sat down, I held his hands, and I had the translator tell him, do not be afraid. And she did. And I said, tell him I am not here to hurt him. And she told him. And we went on with the hearing on the matter at hand, disposed of the charge, and I asked him if he would be willing to stay and just have a conversation with me. And he was. I think he was still very afraid, probably too afraid to say no, but he was willing to talk with me. And we had a really pleasant conversation. And I asked him, why are you here? Because I knew somehow, maybe from what the deputies told me, that he had once been deported and was now back in the country. There was no fatality involved in his case. But I said, why did you come back after you were deported? And he said, I had to come back. And just as the DA and Theo said, well, why did you have to come back? I didn't say it in that tone. But he said, I've got a daughter who was born here in the States. She's got cancer. I have a wife that cares for her now. They live 60 miles north of here. I've been a brick mason for 15 years here in the country. And he said there was no way I could leave. And so we had a very pleasant conversation. And I don't know why he came to my mind when I was writing Theo, other than that it seemed right that an African-American man who had been mistreated by the system and a little Guatemalan man who was in a system that he really was kind of stuck in, that those two would find common ground. And for Kendrick, as you might remember, the father of Lamisha, up until that point that he saw the Guatemalan man in the courtroom, the man was nothing but a label. He was just a category. And there was no imago Dei to that category. And for Kendrick to look at him and realize, I'm just a little man who loves his daughter, standing next to another little man who loves his daughter, might be the starting place for a really good friendship with people who are different than we are. And so I included the scene. I actually had the man's actual name in the text, but right before sending the book off to press, I changed it because it seemed the right thing to do. But to me, that little cluster of encounters in the book is the dramatic high point of the story, far more than.
Well, a day we'll always remember. Please join me in thanking Allen Levi for coming.